Hey guys, this is CK Supreme, and welcome back to another build video. So in light of my last video of completing that 100% speedrun, I figured I'd take a look at the build I actually used to complete said speedrun. In the video before that, I mentioned that I'd be doing a run showcasing the lifesteal build that I made for you guys. However, I actually lied, because in that speedrun video, I was in fact not using a pure lifesteal build, but instead I was actually using this crystal build that I had briefly mentioned for a second in the lifesteal video, but hadn't really gone over in detail. So I figured I'd go ahead and do that for you guys real quick in this video, as well as go over some of the strats that I used to accomplish that speedrun. So starting off first here for our hollow bites, we're basically looking to maximize blade damage, because the crystal corundum affix, as you'll see later on, basically takes care of all the damage mitigation we need, along with critical cuffs, which basically allows us to get all of our HP off of random critical hits, because we'll be doing upwards of 1,000 damage for a random critical hit. That'll heal like, I don't know, somewhere around at least like 50 HP. Starting with Plasma Edge, again, just gives us a lot of blade damage. 25% blade damage, in fact, for every 150 bright blood in the cache. You usually get about 1,000 bright blood at the end of each run, so by the time you've even killed a few enemies at the beginning of the run, you're already getting 25% bonus blade damage, and then that just continues to stack. So it's perfect for longer excursions where you're going to be picking up a lot of bright blood before you actually go to the extract. Definitely perfect for the speed run. Then here we have critical cuffs, which I mentioned before. Just restores our HP off of crits. My philosophy with the speedrun build was to basically not have to worry about my resources as much as possible. So that meant that I just went straight into a blade build, right? Because I didn't want to have to worry about battery for my guns. I didn't want to have to worry about HP, so I took the corundum affixes on my crystal gear, as well as critical cuffs, so that way any HP that I did lose could be very easily offset in the moment when I got random critical hits. And for our next solid bite, this is the real money maker. This bad boy right here just gives you an innate 200% extra blade damage with the cost of reducing our HP by 35%. Now that 35% HP reduction, it might seem like a huge deal. At the very beginning of the game when you're just starting out, I'll admit that it is pretty noticeable, especially since stims heal you for about 75 health, if I remember correctly, and that's just like a flat healing amount. It doesn't really seem to go anywhere above or below that. 35% HP reduction can be pretty huge when you're first starting out, which is exactly why I recommend not really messing around with it too much if you are just beginning to play the game. I will say that the upside, though, is way more impactful than its downside. 200% blade damage just right off the get-go is incredibly good, because it gives you an enormous damage boost that you can use to easily stack up all that bright blood you need to get an even higher damage numbers from this hollow bite right here. So I can't really understate how good this is. I'm sure it'll get nerfed in the future, because it is just way too dang good in its current state. But that was just invaluable to my speedrun build. Next up, another hollow bite that I used in my lifesteal video, Flash Accelerator. This just allows me to get a lot of crit chance after using flash step hits, which you see me do very often in the speedrun video. In case you're wondering, again, flash step hits are the dash attacks. I can't really do them here because I'm in the hub and I can't actually use regular attacks in the hub, but you do it by dashing and clicking attack at the exact same time, which is pretty integral to the combat, just because it allows you to chain your combos faster and close the distance between multiple enemies at the same time. Next, I had Recursive Bind. I'm pretty sure I was using this in my lifesteal build as well. Just makes it to where you become invincible 2 seconds after taking damage. I think this should probably be base kit, to be honest, because it is such an important hollow bite, especially for something like a speedrun where you're trying to just kind of like power through enemies. You don't want to be getting stun locked that much. Even outside of speedruns, though, it's just like there's so many enemies that hit you multiple times and you just get stun locked. This is invaluable for countering those effects. That's why I included it in this build as well. All right, so moving on to the big one that I know you guys are definitely wondering about if you clicked on this video. Innately, the crystal affix, all it does is it makes it to where a percentage of the damage you do is converted to like this timed sort of HP reduction. So even though it only says 10 damage after a few seconds of being crystallized, it's actually more. It's based on like a percentage of how much damage they take. So it's going to be quite a bit of damage. It's not quite as good in my opinion as something like Burn or Rot or the Hack debuff, but it does help with damage. However, that's not the primary draw. The only reason why I'm even using Shatter Gauntlet is to get this crystal affix because of Corundum, which increases our armor by 15% for each gear slot with crystal affixes. Now, I mentioned this affix in the lifesteal video that I made because it's so powerful. What I have here isn't even maximizing the potential of this affix. There are videos where people are taking like 1 or 2 damage from Dro, and it's only because of this affix. They have a build that specifically maximizes their armor. They're usually wearing something like heavy armor, and they're probably using a subclass that has a bit more armor than someone like, you know, the warrior Psycom from Lapis. It's insane. Even without all of that being maximized, you can see at the beginning of my video, I get hit by a wolf and it does like 2 damage. So again, the reason why this happens is because you can have up to 2 pieces of gear that I know of which get Corundum, which is just your rail and your blade, but each of those also have the crystal affix. So that means from just this blade we're getting 15% extra armor from our gear right here that has crystal. Then we get another 15% armor from this piece of gear that has crystal, and then we get another 15% from this gauntlet. So right there, that is 45% extra armor. Same thing from this one, 15%, 15%, 15%. It's another 45% armor. That stacks together. Now we're getting 85% armor, and there's some kind of multiplicative nature of that as well. That allows us to get even more armor than that, because I know for a fact that my armor ends up getting doubled by the time I walk out of the hub. Anyways, that's how I'm getting all my armor. That's where all my damage reduction's coming from. Again, the reason why this is like the definitive tank build is because this allows you to just take 0 damage without even really having to invest in anything else. Just having these affixes just make a huge difference in the damage that you take. Now, something else you'll notice in the speedrun video I did is that I start taking more damage towards the end of a run. That's because as enemies scale up with their danger gauge increasing, the enemies will start to do more damage to you. So unless you do have a pure tank build that's like spec all the way, maxing out your armor, wearing heavy armor, you've got, well, probably the actual tank Psycom from Vermilion, which has the most armor out of any of the Psycoms, you're probably going to be taking some damage by the time that danger gauge fills up. However, the reason why I was using Lapis was because I just wanted to maximize my damage. I cared more about my damage than I did about the armor. And speaking of damage, something that's going to be pretty integral to maximizing your damage on a crystal build or any build that utilizes the same status effect in all of your slots is going to be this tier 4 upgrade called Synergy, which increases all the damage you deal up to 30% if you have each one of the upgrades. That's going to be a huge amount of extra damage that you're doing just by default. And then finally, like I said, I only had medium armor. However, the armor I used for that speedrun video was really important because it was actually boosting the amount of bright blood I was getting with that thrombosis injector affix right there. It's worth noting, not all affixes are actually built the same. Some of them are, like malware blocker will always reduce the effects of status effects on you by 20%. You can see that in here, for instance, this malware blocker is the same 20%. There's another one, malware blocker 20%, bleed 20%. It's all the same. However, you'll notice that other affixes do not have the same thing going on. So for instance, this thrombosis injector, 25% extra white blood, right? Take a look at this. This thrombosis injector is 65% bonus bright blood. That's the largest amount of bright blood that I've seen from any thrombosis injector easily. And this Bloody Pillar has the same thing, 65% bonus bright blood. I'm telling you guys, that's like the highest it goes, and you want to look out for that. And you might be wondering, well, okay, if that's the highest it goes, how come these are the only ones you have? It's because I specifically made sure to not pick up any other ones. If you want to see one that's like lower, where is it at? Here it is. So 55% bonus bright blood, right? And then this one only gives you 45% bonus bright blood. So if you're looking in the shop, just make sure that whatever weapons you're buying actually have like the highest amount if you're trying to min-max. You can see here, this weapon, for instance, has crude whetstone, gives me a 8% increase in crit on blade attacks. But if I look here into my loadout with Soldier's Edge, sorry, Soldier's Light, I always call it Soldier's Edge for some reason, 24% increase off of this crude whetstone. It's just way better. Keep a lookout for that when you guys are adjusting your affixes. But other than that, that's pretty much all I have for you in terms of build tips for today. Tomorrow, I think I'll be making a video on farming tips to basically help you guys get your resources up. You bet it's definitely going to include some tips regarding thrombosis injector because that's going to be super good for your blood. So keep an eye out for that. Until next time, see you guys later.